Welcome, Poggers, to another episode of the Pog State, only 1 week after the one we had prior, our 50th episode, and we're doing it in the middle of LOL Park because it is time for the playoffs. I'm Atlus, of course, joined by Valdes, Chronicler, and Wolf once again. This episode going to be all about the playoffs after we have addressed something that we spoke about at the very beginning of the season, and that was our predictions. And thankfully, our beautiful producer, G-Sun, has given us the awards for every single place. We have Sad Face Place. We have
what I like to
third place.
call
And we have second place. And we have first. So I am going to pass these up. I'll take the fourth one.
Frownth.
You can take the... Did I say Frouth?
No,
No,
I'm saying I'm calling it Frownth.
Oh, Frownth Place.
Place.
Oh, that's good.
He's randomized Wolf.
All right.
It's just in order.
It's a straight line.
It's just in order.
That's how we're supposed
So
to
what
do
do we
it.
start with?
Okay,
Third?
no, I think we do it
Handwriting
because...
is quite.
It's actually.
I know,
we
it's
should show
exquisite,
them.
isn't
This
it?
is really well done.
Yeah. Really, really pretty.
What
Okay.
have I put into this?
Definitely not me.
I will start it off.
Oh no, but this is the only one that we don't know about.
By the way, all these three envelopes are the same, whereas this one looks like a bill that you would
Envelope
get.
of shame.
I don't.
Yeah.
I feel like that's exclusively
Very
for Frownth
sad.
Place.
Oh, I saw
all
a
right.
letter.
Oh,
It's definitely me.
and unfortunately,
Oh,
Yeah,
Wolf.
it's okay.
Well, fourth
I may
place.
have called it Frownth because I just wanted to soften the blow. Trying to create the euphemism for being last is. I'll just very briefly talk about why I lost. I took some pretty crazy risks in terms of what I was thinking early on in the season, like putting Kwangdong in fourth. Then I had to swap Live Sandbox on that spot because it was the only swap that made sense for me to try to like recover because any other swap wouldn't have helped. So Live Sandbox also didn't end up getting fourth place, so that didn't.
yeah,
help
I
me
do have to
really.
remind everyone that we were allowed to swap after round one concluded.
And
We
we
could
all
swap
did.
one team with another team.
We all swapped Sandbox.
Yeah, we all did. Yeah.
So,
for different teams, but
yeah. So it was, it's not what the season I expected. But remember, when I did my votes, I was like, well, it's definitely not Hanwha right now. Like, the fourth
If
place
you
spot, I
go
was like,
back
it's
to
not
the
Live
episode-
Sandbox. Like,
Yeah, if you go back to the episode, it's actually great. The justification is great, and I honestly believe that it's worth it
It was
from
hilarious.
yeah, I think KT really was the one who, like, ended up surprising us all and doing very well. The rest of
Yeah.
them, like, they did
Except
better
Max.
than I thought at the beginning because nobody looked good in week one and week two, but, like, results may vary depending on what your expectations were. I kind
All
of
right.
guessed wrong.
All right, let's go with third place. Valdes, do the honors if you
This
could.
is absolutely me. There was a naughty anti-KT voter in this
There
one, and I
was
was not
one of
able to
those.
swap them any higher halfway through, so this has to be me. Valdes,
look at that.
that's me. Very nice font. I'm a big fan.
Yeah,
of
wait,
this.
hold on. Why isn't my font cool like that?
Sure.
What is
Am
your
I just
font like?
Times
Is
New
yours like-
Roman? I'm Comic Sans. The Comic Sans me. Jason Comic Sans me.
It's really so fancy.
I can't believe
I mean, I deserve it. I deserve it. So
Oh, no. It was worse than we thought.
It was really just KT that got you, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's basically like I had Live Sandbox low, but also KT really low because I wasn't a believer. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I feel like Keen and BDD really need to turn things around, and they did. They really proved me wrong. I talked about this a lot in episodes past. I've already repented for my sins, but I still get third place. But at least my name is not in Comic Sans.
KT fans should actually, thank you for
Yeah,
not
I
believing in
cursed
them.
them.
The more you curse KT, the
There
better
you
they
go.
perform.
I put them in 8th. They got 3rd. It's like the exact opposite, couldn't have been better. Everything else is only 1 or 2 off.
We
I
had a
guess,
lot of
so.
similarities as well. Our
Yeah.
belief in Hanwha, which didn't end up, it was okay. It didn't really end up panning out, but it wasn't too bad.
All right, now let's do the last
I
one.
think we do first, right?
Well, I mean, I guess we
For
could
the-
do both at the same
Yeah.
time because we'll know who
But
first
we
is.
know. We are
Well,
all
we
can
already
open it
know.
You can open it
We
first.
are-
I think because
we are-
you want to justify, like we want to
The
justify
font
ours
is going to be like
in
the
order,
font
right?
is going to be really cool when it.
Yeah,
when it
we
comes
need a
out.
font
I'm
reveal.
fairly certain that, like Valdes, I have myself. As I am not able to actually open an envelope. Very unfortunate.
That should actually be a part of the scoring. I think I'm actually no longer fourth.
As, I'm pretty sure this is going to say Chronicler, and here we go. I got myself as well.
Ooh,
nice.
Yeah.
it's a
It's me.
nice
I
font
think
as
I
well.
think it's the
That
same.
fancy?
It's a big
Yeah.
No, I
calligraphy.
think maybe second and third get the same one, and then
Calligraphish?
Yeah, calligraphy-ish.
yeah, and then the first will be like
Calligraphish, it's
super
on the boat.
fancy. So now we also know.
Oh, font reveal. Font reveal.
Turns out it's Ox.
Hold on.
Atlas disqualified.
Yeah.
Wait, it says Hooney right here.
It's really big.
I wanted to.
It doesn't even say Altus. Come on.
Yeah, I know. Where's the Altus?
Atlas.
I also wanted it to be like word art, you know, like one of the old.
I thought it was just gonna be like an upgrade of font every time, but apparently only I get Comic Sans.
you just get Comic Sans.
I mean, I think my score was significantly worse than Valdez's.
yeah,
also,
I'm actually
so-
curious about the score.
I'm not actually.
I really
I'm
want to
not
know how
interested
low
in
Wolf
knowing.
was.
Okay, Chronicler, tell us where you
I
went
don't really
wrong.
have any large justifications because I think if you look at my lineup, most of the people are like in the category where they belong. I just didn't have as much faith in KT. That's really, I think, the big difference maker between me and Max. Because of that, they were like 3 ranks away, which I think plays a lot into the points instead of only 2.
Yeah.
And then like a couple of swaps. Like if I put KT where Hanwha and Sandbox are, like, and swap them down, it would have been good. I think I definitely underestimated KT. I didn't really have the opportunity to swap because, like many others, I had Sandbox in 8th and then DRX, which that one didn't pan out. That was the one that got me, I think. Otherwise, maybe couldn't been able to swap a little bit, but
Same.
yeah, I didn't take any really big risks like Valdes with KT8 for Wolf with Kwangdong 4th. So that doesn't get you the loss, but it also doesn't get you the win.
And I almost actually got it perfectly right.
Yeah.
If D Plus had have actually won against Gen G this week, and if Kwangdong Freaks hadn't have been able to beat Bro, it would have just been actually it. I don't know how I did it. To be perfectly honest, it was basically gut feeling.
The waters.
Yeah, the waters rang true this time around. Reminds me of the Hanwha Live from a couple of years ago.
Oh, I remember that one. or me with the DRX versus KT.
Yeah.
Lost world qualifier.
Yeah. That was a good one.
That was the waters.
But anyway, that is a result
for Atlus.
from this one. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very
Congratulations,
much. Thank
non-Comic Sansers.
you very much. Yeah. I can't believe they did you like
I'm so
that.
happy they didn't tell us either.
You can just get in Comic Sans. But now we don't need to worry about the Comic Sans anymore, for it is time.
Are we gonna? I'm just gonna like.
Are we all right? I'm just going to place mine here.
All right, that's fine.
It is now time for some playoffs discussion. This is the exciting part. We now get down to brass tacks, and first we need to have a discussion about what we predict the matchups are going to be, because of course they are going to be decided probably before this will release. So you guys will know what all these brackets are going to look like. But for us right now, we don't know which teams are going to be chosen by both KT and D+. Well, I mean, it's KT that's doing the choosing, right?
So yesterday this is Saturday, of course, for those watching the VOD and stuff like this. I did my crystal ball where I had KT getting 3rd, which we knew was probably a given, right?
Yep.
To go against DRX, they were going to 2-0. They did. And then I expect, we actually don't have word yet, but we'll probably get word soon, that KT will pick Live Sandbox. That means that Hanwha Life Esports will play against D+, right? And then my expectation then was that, of course, KT would win against Live Sandbox, would be chosen by T1, and that D+ would also win, be chosen by, or would face off against Gen G. So then I just said T1's going to win everything and the rest is irrelevant. But that's kind of like, that hasn't really changed for me, obviously, after today's matches.
Yeah. And I think, the playoffs discussion is kind of going to be that T1 wins everything and then walks home the victors. So thank you so much for watching, guys.
That was awesome.
We'll
Great
see
box
you
set, everyone.
next episode. Just kidding. Okay, so I believe we have a whiteboard that we will be able to bring out. So let's just take a moment and make that one appear magically.
Can I?
Whoa!
Amazing!
Look at
That's
the
so
craftwork.
cool.
I am sensing, by the way. Look at that. Ring any bells on the envelopes, the numbers? No? Okay. I thought they looked the same.
Oh,
Well done.
yeah. It is beautiful handwriting. Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't quite there,
Like
but now I
ringing
am.
bells. I'm like, yes, please subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Yeah,
and
ring that bell
ring the
notification to make
like,
sure you stay up to
and
date.
subscribe.
Yeah. Also, some really cool other content here on LCK Global. So, gentlemen, it is time to put in some predictions for the playoffs. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through what we expect this bracket is going to look like by the time T1 wins at the very end, okay?
So we can just put winner final right there,
No,
upper
we
bracket.
Just, write T1 at the
Yeah.
bottom.
Red.
Yeah.
In red?
No, you're not allowed to write in red. Wolf
'cause
told
they're
me.
T1.
that-
No, it's okay. It's okay.
It's only
okay.
for
wasn't
corrections. It's not a
okay.
correction.
Yeah, do it.
It's okay. It's okay.
But
'cause they're
this
the
isn't
upper-
the winner.
No, the upper bracket.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
upper bracket, winner.
final. Yeah.
And then we circle them.
And then
maybe.
there's like just T1 at the end.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be a team here, but we have to circle them to show that they win. Because
No,
that's a given.
Just put T1 at the bottom because after they've versed each other, then T1's the victor. And
Nice.
it's just T1 at the end.
Yeah, there we go. Awesome.
There we go.
Great work.
That's
Beautiful.
T1. That's T1 after the way shake.
So
like,
we're gonna we're gonna just accept that, right? Like no one's
Yeah.
gonna. Okay, cool.
Yep, that one's
So-
I
fine.
don't think anyone's.
On we go.
And so, the first round, what we're predicting, as Wolf's crystal ball has already alluded to, is the fact that KT Rolster is likely to pick Liv Sandbox.
What if we don't agree with Wolf?
No, we
Oh,
we
if you
we
don't,
should talk
do you not
about it.
agree?
I mean, I am not sure.
I'm sure.
I want to
okay,
put
I'm
some thought
confident.
into it.
Yeah, I'm
Valdes is
pretty
like,
sure.
well, I don't know. I'm like,
Okay,
that's
so
why Valdes
why
is not
do
the
we-
leader of our bracket.
Before you write it in, Valdes, actually, I do think that this is the right way to do it.
Hold the
First,
pen.
Let's get Wolf's justification as to why KT are picking Liv Sandbox.
Liv Sandbox looked to be the weaker team of HLE versus Liv Sandbox. Like those are the two options, and I think that
I should not be writing this.
I think that Liv Sandbox just overall look very out of sorts. Their coordination is very poor right now, and yeah, I know that KT Rolster had a bit of a rough series against Liv Sandbox in round one. Everybody remembers the Wheeler Elder steals and stuff like that. That was a really crazy series where KT absolutely should have won, but then lost tragically. Yeah, I don't think they care about that. I don't think that's going to be important. I think that Hanwha Life has an insanely strong bottom lane that basically out-aiming's aiming. Like, aiming is like, I'm the late-game scaly guy. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be the late-game 80 carry. Viper's like, I exist, and I'm going to be doing the same thing, and I'm going to do better than you, and I'm better than you at tempo picks like Draven and Lucian as well. I think it's a bad matchup for KT into Hanwha Life Esports because of Viper, and KT looked so good in our final week in terms of how to get ahead and push their leads forward. Liv Sandbox looked like they weren't communicating with each other at all, and they were all over the place. And yeah, they did bring Hanwha to 3, but that was also a weird series where I think neither team played as well as they will in a best of 5. But I just think if you look at the way Liv Sandbox has played not only this last week, but like the last 2 to 3 weeks, they're just the weaker team. And I don't think that it's wise to pick HLE here. It's a much tougher matchup, again, like I said, in the bottom lane.
Yeah. I do agree.
You just concur. I think they will end up picking Sandbox. However, if they don't, I do think that to Sandbox credit, like these teams on paper are effectively the same because the game score is like it's a difference of 2. They have the same score over the course of the split.
I think it's massive.
And okay, well, I know you guys are making fun of me. Let me get to my actual point, which
Okay.
is that if they end up avoiding Sandbox and going for Hanwha instead, I think that Sandbox, when they looked good, which they haven't for the last 2-3 weeks, I actually thought that they looked like a much more well-rounded team than Hanwha. Because Hanwha, to me, have great individual players, but I still, barring the days where Clit actually shows up, see a lot of weakness. And I think that Sandbox, on average, they're probably going to be 3-0 for whichever team ends up facing them. But I also think that they have a higher chance of actually beating you than Hanwha, if they are on the day. So I think it's a lot more volatile.
I think the Viper envy gap is so large
Yes, I agree.
that it is kind of insane to choose
I-
Hanwha over them.
I do think that Hama's recent win over Liv Sandbox is going to be a big decider as well, because not only, we talked about how KT had rough times in
What?
Oh, wait, I'm an idiot.
Oh, it's very pretty handwriting, though.
Yeah, I think we should let Chronicler do all of them from now on.
Yeah, I'm kind of
All
into
right,
this.
I'm going to put this away.
You can do any corrections because you have the red pen.
Yeah, I'll cross it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that in a best of 3. Also, KT have this extra added emphasis on trying to win as hard as possible, so that hopefully T1 do not select them. Because Genji's not an easy opponent either, but I think they are easier than T1, and I think that KT might actually stand a chance against Genji. They even have the same series score over the regular season, and while that doesn't mean everything. That should be a more even matchup than having to play against T1 and going right down to the losers bracket.
I'll actually, I feel like I want to double down on your point about the win-loss not meaning everything. I feel like it means almost nothing when we talk about playoffs. It's really about how your form is at the end, right?
Yeah.
And that's another reason why HLE and Liv Sandbox are both 10-8. But when did those wins come through? For Liv Sandbox at the beginning of the season, now most of the losses coming at the end. For HLE, a lot of their losses at the beginning of the season, wins coming in at the end. And then you look at Genji, KT, Rolster, D+, they're all so close in terms of the score, but it's really current form I think that's more important. Your wins in the early part of the season are how you get into that second round for Genji and how KT gets third place and gets selection in the first place, so it's important in that sense. But in terms of standings, I'm it's all about how you're looking at the end. And every team but Liv Sandbox in the playoffs looked really good at the end.
We all watched the Hanwha Sandbox series, right? I don't think that was a great sign for Hanwha at all. They won.
I think that that's
That wasn't
true.
a good sign for Liv Sandbox either.
No. I'm not saying that Sandbox is worse, but I actually half agree. I do think that the Genji, KT, DK are very close. But I'd personally argue I think Sandbox or Hanwha rather is closer to Sandbox than they are to D plus KT Genji.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I think that in best of 3s maybe. I think in best of 5s, Kingen, Zeka, Viper, and even Clid, I hazard to say, has in the past found clutch moments even within best of 5s.
He was really good in
I say this
Hey, 2021 Worlds Clid was great.
I know. There have been times. The Clidemption was very short this particular season.
Fiery.
But it may make a reoccurrence. You never know. It might be like that heart monitor. Keeps coming back. But I just find it really difficult to count out Viper, Kingen, and Zeka in those sort of moments because it feels like they do have that tenacity when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
And tenacity is kind of what it's all about these days with Orcs turning up and bringing all these Chemtech souls.
I think
to the LCK.
we all have different reasonings, but I think we can all, after this discussion, like I said at the beginning, I'm not so sure, but I think after this discussion, it's pretty obvious that Liv Sandbox should be the weaker of the two.
I agree.
Although I'm kind of with Chronicler on the idea that they're somewhat close because although I think that Liv Sandbox's rough moments have looked really rough, I also think that Hama Life's have been you guys have so many talents. What are you doing? Why are you not playing the game? What is going on? So a lot of really big confusing moments for me where I'm just what am I watching? And a lot of that happened with Hama Life as well. So I think that DK has avoided most of that. So I do feel that kind of gap more between DK and Hama than Hama and Liv Sandbox.
Yeah, I have that mid lane play from Clid just replaying in my head over and over again. I'm still trying to work out why.
I feel like we've all had some really strong opinions about a lot of these teams at the end of the season based off of one misplay and mistake. Peanut's misplay around the Elder, Clid's misplay mid.
I think Genji are awesome. I don't have any strong opinions against Genji.
No, I'm just saying, I think there have been moments where we're all okay, this was a weird moment, right? This was a bad thing. But the consistency minus some of these mistakes, like Chovy getting caught earlier on in the season as well at the end of that KT series, the consistency has been there for 4 of our 6 teams. And 2 of our 6 teams has not had that, right? And that's HLA and Liv Sandbox. Because sometimes you can make a mistake, and sometimes people like to meme, oh, Genji must be weaker because Peanut messed this up that one time. I'm yeah, but 99 out of 100 times, he's where he needs to be and he's doing a good job, right? And for HLE, they can both go toe-to-toe with T1 in the macro game, make some really decisive calls on Baron versus Drake and stuff like this. And then otherwise just kind of run it down and have like a terrible laning phase, and you're like, nobody's on the same page. Klid is just like trying to force fights that don't make any sense, and then Zeka and King are shut down. They're not communicating.
Draven Ash losing to Zeri and Leona.
Like these things like are so glaring compared to like, okay, Peanut messed up that one time.
Yeah,
you know what I
agree.
mean? Like,
That's a good take.
and I think that I look at HLE and I'm like, they could randomly be going to the finals if they actually play to the peak of their level every time in these best of fives. But I can't expect that's going to happen right now.
I mean, if they go 5 games, if there's a game 4 that is won by Humble Life Esports in their series against D+, they win game 5. I guarantee if there is a game 5,
I don't know.
they win game
Maybe.
5.
I don't know.
I think that like they should never get to a game 5. However, if there ever is one, they win it.
I feel like Canyon, Showmaker, and Deft at this point also deserve a decent amount of confidence, no?
I think
mean,
that
Deft was
Canyon
there as well.
Canyon looked a little bit rough after
He
losing
did.
game 1 to Gen G. Like game 2 looked like
Sorry.
he purposely didn't pick Lee Sin when it seemed like a good spot in the draft, and then I forget what else he picked,
Xin.
but yeah,
It
it
was
was like
Xin Zhao,
Xin Zhao, and then I don't know. It just felt like he had lost all confidence. So I'm a little bit worried. I mean, obviously the guy is a world's MVP, so it's kind of hard to say that. But current form and everything, I'm a little bit worried after that Gen G series.
I would say, I think, to Atlas's point, given what happened with DRX at Worlds, like we have to give credit to these players, right? Deft is someone that like needs to be respected here. We're talking about him, but on the HLE side, you have Kingen and Zeka who popped off, right? And Kingen had an amazing 5th game.
Speaking of Worlds
at the Worlds
MVPs.
Finals. Yeah, exactly. So like, you have that angle. I think that on D+ you have Deft is going to be confident in game 5 kind of thing. It does kind of feel like this series is going 5, right? It kind of feels that way. So like talking about that
I don't think
microcosm-
I think it's 3-0 100%. But if it ever did,
If it is,
that's a Humble Life win.
Because I think, well, just to my point, I think it might go 5. Like I'm kind of leaning that way, especially with Blue Side being so strong and stuff like this. Mm-hmm. But I actually feel like the clutch player for D+, people might assume it's going to be Deft, but I think it's going to be Showmaker. Like, he looked so good in that Gen G series.
Yeah.
He was destroying Chovy in lane. He was everywhere he needed to be. Like, Canyon kind of choked a little bit, but Showmaker did not, like, at any point in that series. I feel like that's the one angle you got to be focusing on as a D+ fan. If you go to Game 5, you're like, okay, I don't know about Kana. I'm a little bit worried. I'm a little bit worried about Canyon based on what we saw in that one isolated series. But Showmaker's going to show up. I think Deft is probably going to show up, and I think Kellen's going to show up.
That series to me is so weird because we're not really. I assume we'll talk a little bit about KT Sandbox, but I like I said, I don't expect that
we
to
should
have
talk
any
about
angles.
it still.
Talk
Yeah,
about
a
it a
little
little bit, but talking about D+ and Hanwha, looking as well how the teams have looked. There's been for both of them, even though I think D+ is a much stronger team. Have been days where they just looked like nothing is working at all. And I'm really worried that series is just going to be a 3-0 either way. Where, like, if everything comes together on a day, and I think that odds are that it's D+, because I think that they have way more players that are always on. Whereas Humble Life, some days, Zeka's amazing, but some days he isn't there. Kingen, exactly the same. And obviously, Viper is not included in any criticism because he is amazing and has been really he's been the only player I think at home who's like
Apart
just been
from
good.
the Draven game, like in lane, him and Life
Last
did not
week
play
was
it.
a little bit rough.
Sure, but I also think that I have Life very low on my list of supports, and I do think that plays a large part. And I think the consistency of Viper is something that I'd never question. So I'm really worried that one is going to be like super underwhelming. If Klid doesn't show up, like there is no.
Oh yeah,
angle.
no, it's live or die by the
Yeah.
Klid. Like either you get Klid
Redemption.
or it's Eastwood making his way in, and it's like we're having a real hard time.
I actually think that what's so interesting about this bottom matchup is we've talked about this on the show a lot, and I've gotten a lot of flack for my opinion that Deft hasn't been as successful and D+ hasn't been as successful when he's not playing like strong side bottom where he's got the Draven or the Caitlyn or the Lucian where he's winning super hard. And teams have actually just fallen into this trap so many times where they just give Deft these picks and he absolutely destroys. But I think that's what he is amazing at. We obviously know Deft can play late game carries. He has played so many throughout his career. Like, he's most famous for that, actually. But in the microcosm of this season, he's looked great there, and Viper seems to be, of the two, better in the late game. But his landing phase is weak. So I think a lot of this is going to come down to the draft. And like, if I was going to say like a sword and shield type comparison, but it's really almost like a Zeri and a Lucian. Like, Deft is the Lucian and Viper is the Zeri. In this case, more so Xayah that he's playing more often. But I think if it comes down to if Deft has to play late game and actually Viper gets the strong side pick, like if he's playing Draven, I actually favor Viper in that scenario more than I favor Deft. And then if Deft is, obviously playing the Lucian, for example, into a Zeri matchup, or he's playing the Draven, or he's getting an advantage with a different matchup, he's trying to play the Aphelios in a counter matchup. Like, I like Deft when he has the counter there, and I like D+ when he has that. And I know I've said this like a million times, I've said it all season, but I feel like that still hasn't changed. And if Deft gets tripped up a little bit in some of these drafts where he's not actually able to have control, and then Canyon's not feeling great, and he's not having power in other lanes, the prio game goes to HLE. I feel like HLE will out-teamfight D+ if they go even or ahead every single time. So that's what I'm concerned about. I don't think it's necessarily going to happen that way. And last time HLE met D+, they just let Deft have whatever he wanted, and they destroyed them. But maybe they've learned from that, so who knows?
I have an interesting thing to discuss about D+, if we're just going to dive on them just for 1 second. And by dive on, I don't mean it's not a pile up.
Super dive?
Super dive.
Yeah, we're going to super dive. So
Burst it.
I feel like D+'s drafts in the final week, in week 9, were risky, to say the least. I actually think that it was the most fast and loose champion picking. How much, I'm tempted to suggest perhaps they were doing it on purpose, because they're definitely going to be in, relatively high on the standings. Getting first round, are they really scared about that against the opposition that are presented to them? Maybe. I mean, I don't think you ever want to actually take that risk, and I think that they thought they'd be able to actually beat Gen G there. But I felt like especially against T1, those were some out there drafts.
Yeah, I felt like I think there's some truth to that, where they were like, let's try to win without showing anything if we can. And it was a really
maybe
risky
their
decision.
take on the meta wasn't actually there, and they didn't have to do some of the things that they did. And now with some extra time, they've realized their mistakes. I think their mid lane picks were fantastic, but I think outside of that, things were a bit risky. Canna also had a shocking series in their last one, but
He was playing Cannon.
it's a pretty good pick theoretically.
Electricity.
I kind of echo what Wolf was saying, but I don't necessarily think it's about Deft specifically. I think that Damwon play better because they don't really function when they have a lead. And that, to me, obviously with everything, the disclaimer is barring T1, I think they are the best team that, with pushing leads, and when they have a lead, I think they're the strongest, again, barring T1, for obvious reasons. And I think that's why they really rely on their bot lane actually having pressure. And I think that their team fighting has really suffered, and that's where we see that Hanwha that's the only place where I'd say Hanwha can match any team. Like, it's their team fighting, right? Like,
That's what I'm
front to
saying,
back,
yeah, I agree.
King on a tank, Viper on a carry. Like, that's the only way where I think Hanwha are actually good. And that's why I think that D+, if they do have a good read on the meta, should never lose against Hanwha. It should be 3-0 because Hanwha's early game have been very unimpressive. And D+ should just win the early games. It's also why I think that D+ never have a shot against teams like T1 or Gen G, because T1 has a better early game, and Gen G can actually match them and is then, I think, way more consistent mid to late, because that's where D+, I think, have struggled the most, is when the early game doesn't go the way that they have been when they've been most successful. And then Canyon just tried to hard force weird plays, and they kind of fall apart.
Canyon can't play the same style that he did at the beginning of the year, even in the past, right? Like, I remember he was having a lot of success even last year, just kind of hanging around certain lanes and kind of camping them. We saw that a lot at the beginning of this year. I'm a little bit worried that he's not going to be able to do the same, whereas Clid, you can say what you want about him, but I think he's got more of a overall map focus. Sometimes it doesn't seem right, but he's
Clid
not
is
only
always flanking.
He's not always focusing on the bottom lane and hanging out there. He's not only, going mid or top. He's kind of, you remember that Vi game where he ganked top, came mid, ganked there, went bot, ganked there, had success all around. I think he's kind of got that angle. And to the point of the team fighting, I would say that, Hanwha Life Esports were able to force it against T1. If they're up to their game, I'm pretty sure we're going to get an upset.
The weird thing is, the more we talk about this, the more I'm like, I
Right?
think Hanwha wins, actually.
Right?
Wait a minute.
It's very
Also,
strange
consider
because
consider this, we don't know if it's going to happen. It might be fixed, but I doubt it because we're playing on the same patch. Viego is disabled. Lee Sin's banned every game. Canyon can't play Lee Sin in this best of 5, probably. It's probably not going to happen.
I
Well,
think
there's a
Viego
ban
probably-
that has to be forced.
Yeah,
at least.
I assume that Viego will be hotfixed. Generally,
I hope so, but I don't know. But if that's a thing,
don't
that's also
know,
a problem
'Cause
for
it's
D+.
Thursday.
Yeah, that's
in
true.
this case, so
Usually
it's
the
pretty quick.
turnaround on like really big meta champions is not that bad.
We'll have to see how
we'll
it
see.
goes. I think right now it's a little bit of speculation. You guys might actually have more information than we do.
In terms of like meta stuff as well, it's going to be interesting because I feel like the meta really is in flux right now. Like what you were saying, Max,
Yeah.
where DK's read on the meta, was it them purposely hiding picks or did they not understand it or what? Life Esports, I feel like they also have some holes in their meta, but I feel like we might get some games where one team just randomly gets like a big draft edge. Like, Life Esports love to play Zyra Khan. They're just going to pick it, and we're going to get like Kellen playing Renata, and they're just going to like boom them somehow.
The Renata Draven angle.
Yeah, and they're just it's going to be like so over in like the first game of the series, and we're going to be like, oh crap, like how did that happen? So
Yeah, it
I
does-
think meta will play a big part in this.
That's actually a really good point, though, about the Xayah, because they have been so reliant on it. Kellen is the best Renata player in our tournament, I think, besides Carrier probably, but he hasn't really played it, so hard to judge his current form.
yeah, and it's not Carrier's best champion, but Carrier is like so far above like everybody else in the universe. It's hard to know.
But
where
like
it fits.
of these two players in this series, like Kellen is going to play the Renata, and Life he might, but like he's not on the same level, and because Viper has been so reliant on that Zyra Khan.
Kellen's Renata the last time they played it though was actually a bit off. It was a bit.
That is
but
true.
The
It was a
whole
little bit
team
weird.
was kind of a bit off as well in
Yeah.
that Gen G series.
Yeah, I think the Gen Z series was deep. Like T1 is very clearly better. In the Gen G series, I still think that Gen G played much better on the day. But I do think that was a pretty close series. Second game in particular, I think, was actually quite close. And I would expect D+ to clean up their drafts. And I generally will favor the aggressive team over the team that like kind of is relying on their opponent not to snowball against them. So I'd be heavily favoring D+ in this one.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they are the ones that have all the agency in this matchup.
Life Esports were able to stop T1 from snowballing against them, which was pretty impressive. They beat them in round one. Round one is whatever, but like round two, I don't know if it was because of Life Esports or what, but like at least in terms of T1 versus DK, like Life looked quite good against T1, and maybe that's only that one matchup, and it's a really big mental thing. But
Yeah, I guess
I don't think so.
That's somewhat true, but I feel like T1 snowballed against them, and then Hanwha still like were resilient more than I would say that like Hanwha stopped the snowball, because I think T1 snowballed really hard, but Hanwha were like, all right, we actually have like one
yeah,
angle
so that's
here.
even
Yeah, but
further
that's
to the
actually
point.
yeah, it
Yeah.
kind of works.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that was kind of like my take on how that went down. I really think this is like draft dependent, because the more I think about it, I'm like, well, if D+ get all these sick picks, like it's going to be so easy. But I'm like, what if they don't? Like they're going to get totally smashed. I think it's going to be like a best of 5 decided by draft, and I think it was Max Atlus who said earlier, like probably feels like it's going to be a 3-0 one way or the other. Like,
it was
and then
me.
we.
Yeah.
Oh, that was
I think
you?
it's a 3-0 if D+ win and Hama win in a 5 game.
Because I've like gone from I've like gone full circle in this discussion where at the beginning I was like, yeah, 3-0 no matter what. Then I'm like, no, it is going 5, and now I'm like, nah, it's going to be a 3-0 no matter what. Like this
Yeah.
series is so difficult to predict.
I think if it's if you're gonna predict that Hama Life Esports are gonna do it, the game score is there for you. Same with if D+ is going to win.
So, but are we in agreement that it should probably be D+, or do we want to?
I think it should probably be D+.
it should on paper.
On
It
paper.
should be.
What do you? What
I'm
is-
I
what-
think-
worried,
think
but
there's-
like I feel like I
okay,
can't
There's
predict
a chance
this
for
one.
an upset.
What did the waters say?
Oh, the waters say Hama. But that's the
DK?
waters.
I don't
believe-
have
I
waters.
think I'm saying DK. I think I'm saying DK.
So we got
Yeah.
3 DKs.
Yeah, I
but
think
Max's
that's-
waters are there in case the upset happens.
I mean, my waters did get me first place in the the standings prediction.
exactly.
That's a scary thing.
So who wants to go first on the next matchup? Which
Well,
is
we didn't talk about KT versus
No, that's
Sandbox.
that's why I was
Yeah.
sounding the way I did.
I can go first.
yeah,
KT
go.
look really, 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 really strong, and I don't think Liv Sandbox have a chance. It's a 3-0 for me.
Okay, hear me out. I'm the Sandbox Copium guy, right?
KL.
I KL Willer Birdle when he's good. I don't got nothing. I think it's a 3-0. Like
I mean,
no matter
Palooza
what.
might
Even
win lane a couple of times.
yeah. My
I think
issue
the
is
top
that
gap is so gigantically large
yes. So
that even today's match of Keen versus Rascal, like that one looked incredibly one-sided.
God, that was so fun to watch.
So
man.
my core issue is, and I don't think it matters because of how big the individual gap is. The only one I think that can match is Wheeler when he's really on, but he also needs laners, which I don't think he'll have, and closer with like one of the 4 champions that he plays really well, which I don't think he'll get.
Yeah,
So I don't
by the
expect
way,
that to matter.
Closer, it's not his meta. Like, his
No.
Veigar has
Yeah.
looked really bad.
Yeah.
His Talia has looked very middling.
He's got melees and Ahri.
His Yone is really easy to just see coming a mile away and just ban away. His Sylas is really irrelevant if they just don't play Gnar. Like, Sylas has gotten pretty weak. Like, I don't think we think this is a strong pick blind or anything like that right now. So I think BDD has his number. I think Keen has the top side under wraps. And, like, on a good day with, like, Lucian or maybe Zeri, like, maybe Envy could outperform aiming. But, like, that's a big maybe for me.
I
just wanted to look at
BDD
Max.
has a really good patch.
I want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an amazing patch. We haven't even. I think Zoe.
Except
is
Azir is
actually
gone, but, like, besides
True.
Yeah, but I
actually
mean,
think
even
Zoe's good as well.
BDD hasn't needed Azir so
No, he
much
just plays
this
Talia.
year. And, like, his Talia has always been absolutely amazing. Like, and no one's been picking Zoe, but if that does come back, then that's, like, super fun. And his Yone is amazing.
Yeah. No, I mean, BDD has been. It was my third pick as well for All Pro because it's just been insane.
He was my second.
Second
Yeah,
for me.
I was still one with Chovy. So after the D+
Fair enough.
game, I'm like.
Yeah.
But what I really wanted to say, and that's actually as much as I love KL, that bot lane is never going to win. And if you're losing against the KT bot lane, like it's done. Because I think not that the bot lane is their weak spot, but to me the core of this team is Lahens and how he impacts the rest of the map. And
if you can allow the space for aiming to be by
Yes.
himself, it's so huge.
because Lahens' map impact is the best of anyone bar carrier. Can we just add that disclaimer for anything? Because otherwise we have to keep.
Yeah,
it's annoying.
we don't need to keep saying.
It's
Can we just
obvious,
have like
right?
maybe we could just have a picture
Disclaimer.
of Carrier's
Best
face
non-Carrier-
just over us.
best
non-carrier
non-carrier or best non-T1.
We're just part of the Carrier cult now.
Yeah.
He's just
Actually,
up there
yeah.
with a halo around
Yeah,
them
yeah.
at all times.
That's the only angle, and that's why I think like Gen G, for example, or D+ with the right draft against KT, I'm like, I can see it because as good as their top side is, without Lahens, they become less lethal. But in this sandbox matchup, like, there's no way Lahens will be stuck in that lane, so I think it's just doomed.
So Valdes has gone with my crystal ball prediction.
Yeah, I actually messed up because I just put D+ here, but we don't. We should talk about whether this
Yeah,
is
I
going
actually-
down.
Yeah, who's going to choose who?
I actually
Yeah.
think that T1 will choose DK.
Do you
I don't
actually
think they will
so?
choose KT. Yeah, I don't think they will.
All right, I want to hear. I want to hear about that.
Well,
I was
So
thinking that as
explain
well.
yourself, Valdooni.
So I was thinking about this purely based on how we expect the series to go now that they're there, because I think that with KT getting Live Sandbox, they have a chance to look real good.
I think that's a part of it, right? Like, I think that's something I mentioned before. Like, KT are probably going to make this extremely quick 3-0 against Live Sandbox. They're going to look really strong in multiple lanes in multiple different ways, and I think that T1, although you can pretty much pick anyone, you still are going to pick the weaker team. That's what they've always done as an organization. And I think Hama Life actually stand a chance to give DK a run for their money. I think that series is going to be a lot more messy. We're going to see some weaknesses of DK that I think Hama Life can exploit, and I think that T1 will say, hey, well, we learned a lot more about what to do against DK than we did about what to do against KT. Especially with KT on this massive roll, like, you never want to put yourself in front of a moving train, and they're like on a 6-game winning streak. They're beating lots of great teams. They beat Gen G. Like, I don't know. I just wouldn't want to get in front of KT, and I think it's only going to get even more severe after the first round of playoffs.
Yeah, I feel like KT are actually the second strongest team right now.
That's a bold statement.
Maybe. That is pretty
No.
bold. I'd say there is a chance, but we don't know.
They looked like the second strongest team in the LCK in their games today, but they were playing against DRX.
But I mean,
What
and
about
the
the
week
last
before,
5
Well,
series?
but Gen-
because they
Gen-
beat the actual second place team.
Yeah, but Gen G is the only team that has gotten like, and obviously Gen G at their worst have had like some of the worst moments in the league, right? Peanut walking away, him getting caught. There was the catch on Chovy, I think it was in round robin 1.
yeah,
But
on
they
the
are
Silas.
also the only team where I felt like they had a genuine chance of beating T1.
What about Hanwha?
Well, I think Halma had a great like individual games against them. but I feel like the Genji, the
They
position.
did beat them.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
a long
well,
time ago.
I agree,
But
but I think
That was basically the Dark Ages.
I know, but I
Uh-huh.
think that enough time has passed that match doesn't mean that much to me, and I don't think that T1 would have that happen again. And my main thing is that Genji against most other teams to me has been miles ahead.
It's interesting because
Except against KT.
Well, I know, yeah.
and
but,
KT
yeah.
took a game off T1 in round 1 as
True.
well, and even though things weren't as close after that, I think it's I don't know. That's sort of my like gut feeling. Recency bias, of course, is actually important, right? Because which team is on form. A lot of our discussion is sort of rotated around T1, KT actually having a pretty good meta right now for what their players want to do and how they want to perform. I don't know. The more we talk about it, the more
I'd
I'm
say
like,
the form of Genji is
are we
also
getting
good.
Telecom War
Yeah.
final?
I'd say that
So-
like Pays and
Yeah.
Chovy are really on form, right? So I
Yeah,
think
yeah, that's
they've
true.
got some
That's
good
true.
form too.
So
They've
I-
improved since their match against KT.
here's the main reason why I think K2 will get chosen by T1. And okay, one side reason, which I think is an important reason, is
You
that
want
I
it
think
to happen?
well, there's not that. There's not that. I do kind of want it to happen because I think it'll be really cool, and I think we might miss this matchup otherwise.
I really hope so.
But I think D Plus is a stronger team than KT right now, in my opinion, even though they're below them in the standings, which, like I said before, doesn't matter to me that much at all. But I also think that D Plus, these players, some of the coaching staff, know T1 so well. And they've played against each other in best of fives so many times. KT has not played against T1 in a best of five in like a million years. And I think if you're T1, there's some pitfalls you could fall into. They're really good at what they do. But D Plus has played against it a million times. I think they know how to stop some of these snowballs. I think their cross maps have been good. I thought KT played very well macro-wise today, specifically, but otherwise they've had a lot of hiccups in the mid-game. They're like 6,000 gold up, and they like can't do Baron. They're like chasing people around the map. They've looked a little bit lost. And like when they didn't do that today, they looked scary, but again, it was DRX. I think D Plus, if you make a mistake, they will punish you harder. I think they know how T1 draft. Showmaker knows this team so well that he can decide what he wants to play against Faker. That's a strong point potentially for Showmaker because he's looked really on form at the end of the season. Not to say that BDD hasn't, but I feel like Showmaker knows what he wants to do against Faker, and he knows Faker's tendencies better than BDD does. I know that sounds weird because BDD is like an extremely veteran player, right? I'm I'm a little bit worried that if you pick D+, like the series actually could expose you, even if you win as T1. Like you actually play a tough series against D+, and then like you actually get exposed, and then the next team that faces you, even if you win, like has so many extra advantages. Whereas I feel like against KT, like if KT wins, it's like, damn, KT's good, but that's what you learned. But I think, or if it's like close, like, damn, KT's good. But how well will KT play? Like, will they actually hit those macro benchmarks? I'm kind of betting no in this series, actually.
So very short point as well, and this isn't even about recency bias, but KT's like last few opponents have also been very straightforward. Where we talked about like the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, they're due an
That's-
upset, due
freaks.
the upset.
That's well, not even that, but I do think that it's always because I think KT, without a shadow of a doubt, belong up there with D Plus and Gen G. But I also think that they look a little bit better because their last 2 weeks have all been teams that they
like
that we
Gen
talked
G.
about. I think, well, barring Gen G, like I think it's important to mention was Gen G was the first match
Yeah, it
of
was
week
their
8.
first match of week 8, yeah.
And then after that, the 3 matches were
Yep.
They had a really tough schedule, then a really easy schedule.
Exactly.
And they excelled on the tough schedule too, but
yeah, they're still really
Yeah.
good, but I do think that plays a part with how teams will evaluate them.
I think
Alright,
a lot of our disagreements, like last
you're
point,
right.
comes from how we rate KT versus DK.
Yeah.
Like I think over here we
Agreed.
kind of rate KT a little bit stronger than DK, whereas you guys kind of rate DK a little bit over KT, and I think that's fair. I think it's really close,
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to say, and I think that will be ultimately, outside of the small stuff. Like Wolf had some good points as to why you wouldn't want to pick DK. I thought, some good points. Like KT is going to smash Lift Sandbox, and they're really on a roll. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a hard decision.
What about the factoring in of a lower bracket? Because I think you choose D plus because you're the team that you're T1, right? T1 exceptionally good at bouncing back after a loss. Even if you drop the whole series, I don't think you're too worried, right? You do the research and you come back and you beat them the next time around.
I like
However,
that.
if you crush D+, you never have to face them again. Because there is no way they back it up in the lower bracket.
That's
Oh,
actually like
I don't know about
that's kind of a
that.
sick argument. But
No,
like,
because look at the weeks that D+ have had. They haven't been able to back up their losses. They tilt out of their minds.
That is
and
true.
they need a lot of they need to face like a Nongshim that they can beat really easily to get back into that momentum again.
What if
That's been
that's
this
just
whole
Hanwha?
year.
What if that's just Hanwha? What if they just
Well-
dunk on Hanwha? What
I
do you
mean-
do as T1 then? Like, what if TK dunk on Hanwha? Do you definitely
Well, then you're
choose
just
KT?
T1, so you're better. So you just beat them, and then if
But maybe
if you,
that's
but if you
DK's
don't,
bouncing back.
But if you don't beat them, then you're in the lower bracket, right? So you're not actually you're T1.
Yeah, but then, like, I actually agree with the first part that T1, even if they do lose, will still be my clear favorite to win the entire split. But I'd actually argue the opposite, that if you lose against D+, you actually do get worried, because then they just get to cruise through the upper bracket, and then they kind of can maintain their
So my
momentum and pick up
argument
steam.
against you is just that like winning winners finals is actually so important because of the
it's
advantages
really
that you
big.
get, that it's like, yeah, you could do it, and like I do trust like what you're saying about T1, and I actually think it's like a really good argument that you have, but I think T1 will always choose just getting to the winners bracket finals and like taking the easiest path there,
Yeah.
and
But
just studying their opponents even if they're not facing them and being like, I'll be fine.
But also, KT are technically the stronger team. From their point of
Yeah.
view,
I think that's up
KT
to debate.
Well, I mean, it's up to debate, right? But like, the point is that on paper right now, KT are the more dangerous choice
Yeah.
because they're third, and D+ are fourth, right? So if you're looking at from like purely that perspective, and especially on current form, right? I'd put KT above DK based on that. So it will be a feeling choice for T1, regardless. So you're choosing between two difficult options, and yes, there's a lot of history between a lot of the players that make it a better choice theoretically to
Best
go
of
against
5
KT.
experience, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, all these sorts of things. But like BDD at Worlds was like one of the like prior to last year, the dark ages of 2022. We don't want to talk about, but prior to last year,
That
I
one
think he
best
was
of 5 where it was a good first 2 games,
Yeah.
and then the rest of the games happened.
like BDD in that year was like the best mid laner in the world. He was
I still
absolutely
can't believe
incredible.
that lineup almost made it to the World's Finals.
Yep. But instead it was Viper, so it's hilarious how these things happen.
What if T1 choose DK so that KT can beat Genji on the other side of the bracket again?
Oh, kind of hype.
I think
what?
They have their number, so
I
you
love
don't
it.
choose KT so
Yeah.
that KT can snipe Genji and put them in the lower bracket,
because you know that D+ is never
put them
winning
on the
against
back
Genji.
foot, you know?
And then you definitely eliminate DK by doing that.
And
also,
It's a win-win.
But there's also the other thing that you can get into the heads of DK. You feel like if you beat them the first time, you can always beat them again. So even if they get through,
going in too deep.
oh god.
Realistically, here's one thing I'll say, and then we probably have to like do a vote to decide what we're gonna do on our little like predictions
we
bracket.
have to
I think
actually
it's
get
probably
through
the
this.
KT thing.
but
Yeah.
I think T1 is scared of no one.
Yeah. No,
I
that's-
actually think
yeah.
they do not care even a little bit. Like they're not afraid of anyone.
Yeah.
Because they're there.
We're trying to work out what the smarter choice is, I guess.
All right, maybe we should just vote.
But we also, the tough part is we haven't seen the matches, and I'm 100%
Yeah.
certain that those are going to play a part in who T1
T1 will
Absolutely,
choose
yeah.
whoever they think is weaker, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Like, we're going really deep, but
So,
I think they'll
who can they
choose who they think
exploit?
is weaker.
So, I do think it's extremely likely still that this will just be Genji, no matter what happens.
Yeah.
T1
Whoever they face, I expect Genji to
Yeah.
go up against.
Even if it's KT, I think
even
Genji
if
will
it's-
win in a
yeah,
best of 5, yeah.
I agree.
Although, it's kind of close.
No, I,
Just one more point.
I think if it's KT, I think KT beats them in a best of 5.
I mean, I think that's a fair argument. But do we think it's most likely that?
No, I
I'd
don't.
say probably not most likely.
That KT
Yeah.
wins versus Genji in
Should we
best of
vote
5?
on, do we think this is going to happen? Because I don't think this is going to happen.
No, I think. Wait, you don't think this is going to
Yeah,
happen?
I think T1 will choose DK.
Okay, let's vote
Yeah,
on that.
play by-
I vote T1's picking KT.
I think
up to
they're
Connie, though.
picking. I think they're picking KT.
I think they're
So we're
picking
down the
DK.
middle.
Yeah, we're down the middle.
I mean,
And-
Wolf's
okay,
crystal
so-
ball, so we can just go
Wait,
with this
we
thing.
just go with this. It doesn't really.
Yeah, I think that's okay. Although I think that if you were going to default you default to who the weaker team is on the standings.
Sure, can do that. That's fine.
True.
Yeah, I think that's a good argument.
Well, we just talked about how that doesn't matter. Like, we spent like the first half of this episode being like, well, the standings don't really matter. It's about how
No,
good
the
you are right
standings
now.
don't matter,
No,
but
but
it's
it's
to break a
current form.
tie. To break a
Current
tie,
form
they can
matters.
matter.
to break a tie and for a
It's the fifth
hypothetical
man.
bracket.
It's the fifth.
I
Okay,
think
I mean,
it's fine.
KT also beat
I'm
Gen
with
Z
you, Wolf.
recently. I don't know.
I do agree.
mean, I already did my crystal ball thing, so like if you
Wolf's
guys
got
are wrong,
another
I'll just be
bracket.
like, all right,
Yeah,
whatever.
this is our new
And
bracket.
if you guys are right, I'm like,
Bring
yeah,
out-
cool. I was
bring
with
out
this.
the-
Like, this is my bracket.
Get the second whiteboard in, gang.
I mean, this is not. We'll
like
do
a
our
team of
own.
whiteboards all
I think we'll do our own predictions.
We all get our own
before the
whiteboard
thing.
behind us, and we just scribble our bracket. Thank you.
KT. So, in this scenario,
We're gonna follow this.
Yeah, we can follow this for
should we
now, and then
talk
maybe we
about
can do the other ones.
these matchups then? T1 versus DK.
I mean,
I
we
mean-
kind of just did, right?
We
kinda
did,
did.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
T1 win.
We didn't talk about Genji KT, which I think is an important discussion to have.
That's because that's the
Yeah.
one matchup that is also probably going to and then I think we've covered most of them, and then we can go and actually fill it out. Although, spoiler alert,
Yeah,
it's T1.
Carrie
Yeah.
is still watching.
Yeah.
By the way, interestingly, I think since we both sides of our tables here, analysts and players, I think both think Genji wins against D plus, right? If it is the Genji
Oh,
D
100%.
plus,
Yeah,
100%.
and like so like it's possible that it ends up being we get Genji KT like no matter what, based on like either which way the bracket goes. Because KT, if they go up to T1,
Eventually.
they lose, and then Genji wins against D plus, so like they'll fight. Otherwise, we get it in this matchup where T1 don't choose them and then they face
Yeah,
Genji. So we get to
Genji-
have a discussion about Genji KT no matter what.
Yeah, because it's very relevant. Because it's either gonna, like you're saying, it's either gonna happen in like the round 3 or round 4, most
Because
likely.
there's no way D plus beats Genji, I don't think any of
No.
us think. So I think the Genji KT discussion is an important one that maybe we should do now.
Yeah, I think that's the only one that's because looking at it, that'll decide who the upper bracket and lower bracket are. Genji versus KT, I think is KT at this point. Almost like I'm 80% sure that it's a KT
Explain
win.
your reasoning.
I think Keen is so much better than Doran, it's absurd. I think that Cuz is actually performing really, really well at the moment, and I think Peanut in high pressure situations has been faltering a lot more than he has in the past. And we've honestly spoken about Peanut choking for I don't know since before I joined the LCK. It's been like it's always a thing.
Yeah,
Cuz
it's
has
kind of a
actually
meme.
been crazily consistent for the last round, and that's not the player that he's been in the past. Cuz and Peanut also have a long history with each other. They both know each other's tendencies very, very well. Cuz learnt under Peanut for quite some time after he joined Longju. I think that it's a really interesting matchup, and I also think that KT on the bottom side of the map don't care about what what Pays and Delight are going to do. Pays and Delight are all about that 2v2, and Aiming and Lahens will nope out of it. I just think they'll ignore, and they'll let Pays like farm and he'll be able to do stuff, but I just don't think that will be a point of attack, and I think Lahens will just win the rest of the map. That's what I think. I think that KT do have a game plan into Genji that I think they can use as a blueprint for success.
I would have agreed pre-Genji against D+, because I think what they showed there actually to me was a really big leap in their play style by bringing out things like the Ziggs. Like I think that Ziggs draft in particular makes me way more scared of Genji in a best of 5 scenario, because Pace had never played that. He's never played that in challengers. He's never played any majors.
I mean, he
And
didn't look great on.
He didn't look great. No.
His build
that's
was
fair.
also really not good.
I agree. but
Build-A-Bear.
what?
Where's
Build
the
a bear?
void
No, he
stuff
built
coming?
Leandries against Squishy Kong.
Yeah.
Like, it's like he didn't understand AP mages or something. It was weird.
I think it's very common to build Leandres. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. For what he's trying to accomplish for
Okay.
Poke, like
And I'm not saying that Pays was great at it, but I do think that the fact that he can play, that he's willing to play that, means that his team can shift their styles, and it means that you can give more agency to Chovy and Doran. And while I do 100% agree that Keen is better, I also think that Doran has shown that yes, he has his moments where he looks like, Doran, what is happening? What are you doing? But he is also, to me, one of the strongest top laners at like not losing. Right? like when it comes
team
to
fights. Clutch team fights
as well.
is
But when
Doran.
it comes to like as much as I would never call Doran better than Zeus or Keen, I do think he's really good at losing gracefully in a way that not many other top laners in the LCK are. And
He
I think
also
that
takes a lot of draft bullets for his team.
he's the king of R4
Which is
Gnar,
important.
blind. And I think that Delight has been unlocked in the current meta as well. And that is the one reason, like, Delight on engage reports is a whole different thing. And I do think that as good as Lahens is, I don't think Delight will be just as good. But I do think that Gen G can match to a certain extent there. And I think that their current meta actually has been shifting very nicely toward them, which is why I would favor them over KT.
So I actually echo like almost all the same thoughts. Like in terms of Doran, I'm like the one like unbreakable wall in terms of top lane matchups. Like I feel like Keen does better when he's playing in like a skill-based matchup,
Yep.
like what he did today with Rascal. He's like, if I actually play perfectly, I'll win. But if he's actually just like punching like a brick wall repeatedly, I feel like Keen doesn't get the advantages he normally gets, and I think Doran can be that brick wall. So that's one reason why I'm like, okay, I like Gen G here. I also think that Pays is the better bot laner than Aiming, and I also think that that Gen G rather have shown that they can be super clutch. Like they will actually clutch these team fights to look unwinnable. They will just play it perfectly. They'll punish, but the only thing like I want to go back to just for a second because I know you guys have strong opinions too. The one thing about Doran, like he's like the unbreakable wall in that matchup, but if he breaks once, series is over. Like it's like he's like so good at inting or not inting, but rather like losing his prio for the draft. Like he's good at that. It's hard for you to crack this guy. Keen, I don't think is going to get like 2 kills against him. He's not going to win a 1v2 against Doran and Peanut. But if Doran messes it up once, oh, it's so done. Like Keen is in his head. He's going to mess it up. He's going to start falling apart. Like that's one way that could fall apart. But I really lean towards Gen G. I think they're much more clutch than KT right now. They have a lot more experience as a roster as a whole.
In the regular season. And the thing that I'm like just realizing now is that this is Pays' first LCK best of 5. And he's completely untested in that environment. That is a massive amount of pressure to be put on this brand new player. And I think that is actually going to play a part because Aiming has been around forever. And we saw that him on KT, even in like the best of 5 where they were trying to get to Worlds and things like this, and yes, they did get stumped at the end, but KT was starting to make a run there. And I think a lot of it comes down to the consistency of Aiming in particular. And I think that gives KT even further of an edge against Gen G in this one, in my opinion. It's a really cool debate, though. I almost said the Australianism.
I'm really happy you
could have said it.
Yeah, we're basically guaranteed this matchup.
Yeah.
It's such a banger.
I,
and actually, like, we're so lucky.
Yeah.
Aren't we?
We are.
Look at these teams.
Yeah, we are.
5-team region again.
Double him.
Well, the awesome thing, especially on that note, is that our whole playoffs, like, it was really segmented. You know, it wasn't just like some teams limping in, even though it may feel like that compared to like the top 2. I do feel like the top 2 and the top 3 maybe are really strong, but like even Live Sandbox and Home of Life are like much better than Kwangdong. So
Yeah.
it does feel like we have a really thick bracket of playoffs, which I really like. On the Gen G versus KT topic, I think that Gen G will be better in best of 5s. I think Pays is going to be okay. KT, yes, they do have some good moments. I really like what Wolf was saying about Keen into tanks and how he sometimes
that's
like
a good point.
he gets like really antsy and he's like, I'm just gonna do this crazy thing. Like maybe I can like find an angle. He gets like way over aggressive sometimes. So I'm a little bit worried. Like he looked great in these like more laid back series against CRX where he can just like pound against some of those laners. But like,
I mean,
I think that should be okay. Well, I'm saying like
laner.
it's Rascal like against 5 people sometimes because he's on that
There's
team.
a difference
and even
between playing a
Rascal
skill
is, like,
matchup and hitting a Gragas, you know? And,
Yeah.
like, I think he might be hitting a Gragas
So-
a little bit in this series.
I think that Pays will be okay. I have him really highly ranked on my 80 carry thing, not only because he is really mechanically talented, I think he's really dealt well with his first LCK season. Like, to that point, I have high expectations for him to handle the pressure because he already kind of has in a certain way. Like, I remember his first series was against T1, and he looked kind of like, you know, the little baby crawling, but he didn't look like terrible. He didn't make any huge mistakes. He just looked very muted and like invisible, basically. But since then, he's looked much better, improved a lot. He's been a lot of the core of like how Gen G even draft. They're like, we're gonna pick you Zeri, and then 4 tanks, and then you just do it and carry us. He's had games on Lucian where it looked like he was 1v9ing and against really strong teams under a lot of pressure, and those are best of 3s, but I just think he's got it in him to like step up to the bigger stages. So we'll see. You might be right. Like maybe he does crumble. I would say that aiming hasn't necessarily been very clutch in my mind either. I think that KT, if they do end up winning, it will be through Cuz really being on form, because he really is on form.
Yeah.
A lot of these KT players really rely on being on form, and if they're not on form, it's like, oh god, like what happened? Cuz being one of them, BDD sometimes, Keen sometimes as well, and I think Lehens is really on form as well. So the form is there, but I think right now KT is the stronger team. I wouldn't say like 80-20, but maybe like 60-40. I think it should be a fun matchup. Like I'd probably predict 3-2
The more I
for
think about it,
Gen.G in this one.
the more I think about it, the more I think that it's Wolf's thing about the punching a brick wall situation. It's so funny because it's mirrored towards the bottom side, because aiming's kind of that as well. He'll just deny you this laning phase.
Yeah, but I don't think that Gen.G needs to have... I think that the worst when Pace has looked is if Gen.G does put him on a matchup where he needs to win early. Because I think him and Delight in the 2v2, even though they got like, the double kill this week
So
against
just pick
D+.
him Zeri and Ziggs.
I mean,
he
the-
doesn't
the,
have to
the
care.
Zeri level 6 spike may
Yeah.
not work a third time
Well,
in a
that's
row. We'll just
well,
have to
exactly.
see.
Like I think that's actually where they've been the weakest. But I think that Gen.G doesn't rely on them winning unless they specifically drop for that. Because I think Pace's team fighting to me is actually much more impressive.
He's insane. Delight's team fighting as well. Like, oh my god.
I-
Like, give
oh,
him
man.
Rakan, like, and they're like one of the only teams that understand that, like, oh, you can just pick Rakan without Zaya.
Yeah,
like,
like-
teams are slowly beginning to figure that out, but like they were like, no, we're just gonna get Delight his Rakan.
We might even
that's-
get this twice.
You know,
This is a really good
hope we do.
point. It could happen twice. This is a really good point, actually, because what Lehens has done that has been so successful is like the opposite of Delight. Like Delight has been like pretty good in lane. He's been fine, and he's like set up some 2v2s like occasionally. But Lehens is like the pick guy. He's like, I got him. He's dead. It's
Yeah.
a 5v4. Whereas
roamer,
Delight is
the
like,
early
I will
gamer.
change the entire team fight by myself
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
they're very different styles.
And they're
It's
so
really
different,
cool.
and it's a really cool matchup. I actually think Delight's will end up being more relevant, but like, it's
can't
crazy.
Yeah,
So we have to pick.
we do have 3 going for Gen.G. So
yeah,
I
it's a
think,
3
Yeah.
for Gen.G.
unfortunately.
Yeah,
But I
I've
do
been
think
overruled.
Max has some good points, and I think
I think
it
it's
could
good to
happen.
entertain them anyway, right? Because I'm
Yeah.
sure there's
Yeah.
a lot of you guys at home that think the KT are going to win too. Although, if you are a KT fan, you're probably not going to predict that they're going to win. So it's a little bit difficult there.
So that's and Gen.G, and then we have DKKT.
You do that one.
Yeah.
I'm scared. PK.
Oh, man.
So we can just
Although
go ahead
I'd-
and put T1.
I'd imagine.
Yeah, so you put
yeah, we
T1.
have to put
just
T1
T1 there,
again.
yeah.
Although
No,
that has to be
T1's
red.
here.
Yeah, T1's
Oh, yeah.
there.
Oh, we
and
already
then
put
it's
him there,
still
okay.
loser
Gen.G
bracket.
versus the
The
winner
winner.
of that.
Yeah, so you can
Yeah.
put Gen.G in there.
Okay. Do we think?
I don't think there's
DK's
even a
gonna win or
discussion
KT?
that happens there.
Well, we disagreed on who was stronger.
No, I mean for T1 and
Oh,
Gen.G. I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
clarifying
T1
to the
Gen.G,
fans
yeah.
like there's no discussion to be had here. It's a
actually
waste of
would
everyone's
like
time.
I know it's a little bit underwhelming, but I would actually like to leave this open because I think it matters. Like, so
We're
much
getting a bit
depends
into
on-
the weeds. into
Yeah,
the- yeah.
We can put Gen.G here though. I'd be down with that.
What?
I think it's T1
What if it's
Gen.G.
KT and it's the rematch?
No, I think the finals will be. I think Faker was
Chronicler-
right all along.
No, what if Gen.G and KT face here, and then it's like, oh my god, who's gonna win that? Could be either.
Oh, also fine. Yeah, I'm fine with leaving it open. I'm just, I some things in the
Because you said
LCK
you
are
wanted to
just
put Gen.G
inevitable.
there.
Yeah, because we're gonna get it for a third time in a row.
I see. Okay.
It's gonna happen again.
He's just saying it's gonna be T1 Gen.G because it's
Oh,
always T1
right.
Gen.G.
It's
Okay.
always T1 Gen.G.
All right. I don't think it is.
You think it's T1 KT?
I mean, I didn't think that. I didn't think
Yeah,
that
for Max it's
Gen.G
kind of
was-
hard to.
Yeah, it's just sort of like.
Max thinks KT wins here against.
Wait, you
T1.
guys
No,
actually
I-
think? Wait, does everybody think KT beats D+?
No.
No, we
No.
were
Um,
split
I'm
we had,
not
we had a
sure.
long we had a long discussion on that.
about who would be the better choice.
Wait,
for
so what do you think
T1,
the finals will be then?
And we kind of discussed who we thought is stronger.
Well, we
so-
thought. Well, I mean, I think we thought we talked a lot about what T1 would prefer, but we didn't really talk about like what happens in KT versus D+.
I mean, I would
as a
choose KT
five-
just
best of
because
five.
I think they're
Oh,
stronger.
yeah, yeah, that-
but
so
it's
we
kind of
had-
hard to make the call after we're going to see 2 best of 5s from both of those teams.
Yeah.
Or well, 1 best of 5 before both of the teams.
Well, if we're
going
gonna
to
finish
even
out the
get there.
bracket, we have to have a discussion about it, right? Right.
Right.
Carter's like, no, I want to go home here. I'm like,
abstain.
okay.
Yeah, I'm good. I have no one more thing. You guys can take this one.
One more thing, but no, you go
No,
next.
I do think that like the DK versus KT matchup is really interesting though, especially now. I don't know, with their sort of like opposite form in the final week, like KT really having a resurgence, even though they're against weaker
strength of
teams and it's
schedule.
easier to see. And DK did have the hardest week of the round robin, right? But they also, did suffer a couple of losses there, and we did see that there were some weaknesses, even in the draft and the preparation and stuff like that.
Do we agree that BDD beats Showmaker in that matchup? I feel like I don't want to trust BDD.
I'm
in this
also
matchup.
worried about like Cuz, even though he's been really solid, like maybe Canyon just turns on World's MVP mode, and then if Cuz loses like really hard in game 1, I'm like, ooh, That's why I think it's really close.
I'd actually take I think current form Showmaker to me is the second best mid laner in the LCK.
I mean, this week Showmaker was extremely
Even like
impressive.
I think just ever since he like clearly has been feeling better, I think he's been really, really good. It's just that his first round was like really rough.
And then they played against T1 and Genji.
Yeah.
Oh man, that might end up being like one of the. And now I hope it ends up happening. Really excited for that match.
All the KT matchups are really exciting.
Yes.
But doesn't that mean there's one thing in common though? Is that we just don't know how KT is going to play, and we think they're good, but we're not sure. And that's
Not
that's why for me,
necessarily.
like I have a lack of confidence in them, and like almost every time I voted against them here, except against Live Sandbox.
And I'm
like
the
I'm the
same, but
biggest
with
KT
DK.
supporter in the world, right?
And I'm the biggest DK supporter in the world, but I don't trust them right now because I can see their weaknesses, and because I'm like I like this team a lot, but I can see very clearly what it's going to be.
So, call it to a vote. Who's going to win?
D+ for me.
KT.
KT.
I'm saying D+. So then does
so
KT
who's
win
higher?
again?
Okay. So
Wait, but we can't do this again.
yeah, no.
Let's give them
So
this
now-
one.
now we
let's
do
give
D+?
you this one. Yep.
Okay. So D+ make it farther due to our Giga Chad generosity.
And
And look
then
at that, our
Genji.
big three again going to top 3 in the LCK.
I've
Look
just
at
filled that one in because is anyone going to predict D+ beating
No,
Genji?
We already kind of did
Yeah.
this earlier in the bracket, so no.
Also, the thing you were talking about, if they even have crazy picks left, they'll use them in that series, and
They'll
then
have
it'll be
to.
Genji's gonna like have the axe and execute whoever makes it in. So, yeah.
I think
Till
it's
as old
really-
as time.
Oh man, I think it's so interesting.
Except that one time where like Lehens was the god of support, and there was like no way T1 could win.
No,
Well,
no, no.
besides
I
that
don't.
time.
I don't even mean like that. That T1 is win. More so, just T1 Genji. I do think T1 will win, but just in general, these teams have faced.
I think this
so
outcome
many
is
times.
it's almost more likely to happen if the decision is made differently as well. Like if you get like the DK versus Genji earlier, then it's like then Genji can cruise through even. Oh man, it's
Okay, what finals would ever if we could just like erase the board and then like choose a finals that you want of our 6 teams, like just pick any 2 teams.
T1
You could
KT.
pick Live Sandbox. Which finals would you want?
T1 KT.
I'd want T1 Genji.
KT Hanwha.
No, no. Actually, you know what?
I don't want
True.
T1 in the final because they'll smash them 3-0.
I'd
I
want-
want the closest
no,
one.
T1 Hanwha.
Monka, wait.
No,
I mean, that's kind
called
of
a
a cool one.
heart
For me, I
attack.
just want
Wait, that's
No,
kick.
I want T1 Genji.
I want
Can't even
one of
mean.
Hanwha,
Can't even mean.
KT, or Live Sandbox to be in the finals. Just be like assuming that like if they go to the finals, they're better than we think because they made it to the finals, right? So like it's like why would you want Live Sandbox to the finals? They're like our worst team in playoffs. I'm like yeah, but if they made it to the finals, they would actually be good, right? But I just want a finals where it's not like the same narratives over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Like give me like Genji D+, like that's kind of different. That's kind of different. Like we haven't had that in a little while. Like
Telecom
you know,
War.
like
Telecom War.
yeah, or that's a cool
It's been a
narrative from
while,
like
you
it's
know,
been like
bring
a
it back.
decade, you know,
Bring it
or half a
back.
decade since we've been going on that one.
I mean,
so
to
like,
be honest, like it's actually super hype because the last time KT beat them in a best of 5 was what 2018. I think that was the last time KT beat T1 in a
Best of 5 was T1 in a best of 5 in 2018.
Well, they were SKT at the time, but
Were they? I think they got 8th in one of those splits.
they did one of the splits. One of the splits wasn't a relevant one.
I guess maybe in the other one.
I think it was a best of series or something like
So
that.
they were
no.
They were,
KT
'cause they
has
were not in
beaten.
finals, right? Because 2018 KT was
Griffin.
against Griffin.
Yeah, he just said best of 5.
Yeah, just in like
a playoffs
I'm
match.
just thinking
yeah.
like
When was
did
the
they-
last time they beat them in a best of 5? And I think it might have been like
2015?
2017, 2018.
So
It's been a while.
Yeah.
I'm down for that matchup. Like, give me that one. Just don't. I mean, this one's cool and all, and it's probably like the best play, but like, I'm
Okay.
kind of over it.
hear me out. What needs to happen to have KT get there?
I mean,
I guess they
Yeah, just beat TK and Genji.
because that's
Yeah.
the most likely.
Lower bracket
right?
run.
I think KT versus Genji is KT favored as well.
Yeah, so you'd imagine that they
That's
win
kind of a hype
here,
finals too. If
then
that
lose
happens.
here,
That would be
and
really
then
sick.
win here, and then they face off again.
Yeah.
Fair.
I think we get the telecom war earlier on, and then I think that
Okay,
they go
wait.
to the lower bracket.
If T1 pick KT and then KT upset T1, and we have like a completely wacko bracket that like we'd have to
The
completely
wacko
redo.
bracket.
I think that's like the way that. Like, think about it this way. Okay, just imagine a world where T1 versus KT, like I predicted in my crystal ball, happens, and then T1 loses, and then KT go to the finals, and then T1 does the sick like lower bracket run where they get like revenge and smash it all the way through. Like that's a pretty sick storyline if that happens. I don't think that's gonna happen, but like if that happened, that'd be really
That's
cool.
yeah.
Man, you
What
know,
if Hanwha versus Liv Sandbox was just the final?
yeah,
That
I mean,
would
the
be
lower
so
bracket,
sick.
I think, is like
Actually,
for
I don't
its-
think it would be that sick.
the debut of the lower bracket is the T1 Mercy rule bracket, where T1
You get to
smashes
lose
them
against them
so
twice.
hard that they like oh no, we should give you another best of 5.
Okay.
So they go
So-
down there and they get one.
maybe one more question. Like, if anyone beats T1, who is it?
Oh, so who has the power to
If
defeat
anyone,
T1?
if
Hanwha.
anyone ends
I
up,
think it's Hanwha.
I mean, it's Hanwha.
Genji?
I can
Not in the
see
finals, though.
the angles
It would be
that
here.
it happens for
It would be
every
here,
team.
not here.
like, obviously, whatever you're gonna say is gonna sound insane for obvious
Yeah,
reasons.
right.
But like, who? Hanwha is the only team that has beaten them. I'm probably gonna go with Genji as well, even though it's kind of boring because they're second.
I think so in the best of 3 against DK, and this is going to sound insane, and it is insane because I don't think it's going to happen. But DK were pretty even
They were, yeah.
for until the disasters happened.
It was a close 2-0.
It
Like, you
was.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, it was
yeah,
a really
it was.
close
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
2-0.
Like there were definite angles for DK to take. I think that DK can play to the level of T1 in the early game better than any other team that we have. And if T1 ever gets any leads, they just win. So I think it's DK that stands the
Sure.
best chance. And then if they flip correctly and start the right fight, then maybe they win a game or two.
And for me, it's like HLE or KT. I think KT is just like, if they go through this bracket and actually get a bunch of wins and get that momentum, like even if they drop early and then go through the losers bracket and get that momentum and that hype, like they're such a momentum-based team. Like maybe they just come to the finals and they're the underdogs and it's like everyone's super excited. Some of these players haven't been to a finals like this in so long. Like,
Remember, my waters are telling me that DK is not even going to be in this tournament.
What do you
Hanwha's
mean,
just
they're
going to
lose
win.
twice?
Hanwha's just going to win in the first round.
Oh.
Okay.
That's what my feeling
It's
is about that
cursed.
first matchup.
It's cursed.
Yeah,
And
but
so I'm
you-
saying
you have
the
to-
team that could beat T1 the best
Yeah.
is the team that I'm expecting
Everyone-
to potentially just be knocked out straight away.
I want you to keep in mind that Atlus has been doing this since the Deft Hanwha run in 2020 when it was like, oh, Hanwha's definitely not going to make it. I
Now
can
it's either
feel
Hanwha
it.
or Deft. Who was it? Who was the reason for that?
Yeah.
Was it the org? Was it the player? I don't know.
I think you know.
Yeah.
I think we all know.
Sure, Waters.
Was
He's
it
just trying to
Morgan?
protect Deft.
Because remember, did I get a Deft trading card? No, I didn't. I
It
got
was
a Morgan
Willer.
trading card.
It was Willer.
In hindsight, you know what?
That team was
Willer?
really good.
There was also Vista.
Yeah, I miss Vista, man.
He had a great voice.
Yeah.
Still
did.
does.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Still-
All right. But I think that is, I don't think we have time to go through any more permutations, guys. I think we've had some pretty in-depth
What if
conversations.
Liv Sandbox actually drops out the last possible second and Kwangdong gets their spot? Because
Whoa.
3 other players have illness, and then we have to put Kwangdong in this bracket. Let's actually, can you put Kwangdong?
Okay, so that's all we got time for today on the Pog State. Thank you so much for watching our 50th episode here as well. If you guys want to put down in the comments what your favorite episode was or something like that to commemorate, that would be super cool. You don't have to. You just put an emoji or say something about why we don't like
Valdes is my
a certain player
50th
enough?
favorite commentator.
Your 50th what?
Yeah, they could say that too in the comments if they
They
wanted
could.
Don't do
Yeah.
that. Valdes is
Valdes-
great.
because
That's
they don't like
mean.
my takes.
Valdes is my top 1 to 50
There you go.
favorite commentators.
I'd say he's probably my
Awesome.
top 75.
Yeah.
Me too.
But for me, every single one of those is Valdes until number 50, and then the rest become relevant. That's how that one works. My my outro really got screwed up here. Thank you so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. It has been an amazing time and a beautiful privilege for all of us to be able to bring you the Pog State for 50 episodes. I cannot believe that Ian's been putting up with editing this shit for this long.
We love you,
My
Ian.
God, just insane.
One
Thank you so
more
much for
thing, though. Like, hold on.
Oh my God, shut up. All right.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone. We'll see you next time for more Pog State. Bye-bye.